Everybody, we're going to start the meeting now. Thank you all for coming. This is a public forum on drive-through restaurants, and the planning board members are all here to listen, to hear what you have to say about this particular issue. Let me just mention the planning board members' names here. Peter Goodwin down here, Susan Replier, Mike Hodder, John Thurston, Brad Harriman, and Julie Jacobs is an alternate. Julie, would you sit in for Vaughn for tonight?
Yes, I will.
Okay. Thank you very much. And my name is Kathleen Barnard. The first thing I want to do is go through sort of why we're here. So in 1998, the zoning ordinance was amended to not allow drive-through restaurants. It read, restaurants drive-through are prohibited, and that was added to the definition section of the Wolfeboro zoning ordinance. And so that's been in place since 1998. In 2014, after discussing this issue, there was a vote by the planning board to prohibit drive-through restaurants due to trip generation, public safety issues associated with the stacking of vehicles, and downtown core leakage. This was passed as a motion and by 6 members of the planning board with 1 abstaining. In December 2016, a petition warrant article was submitted to add drive-through restaurants as a permitted use in the C1 district on a parcel with 1 acre or more. And this was placed on the town warrant and failed. At that time, let me just read to you what was on the warrant at that time. It was to amend the definition of restaurant carryout and to allow it, and then to indicate that a commercial establishment open to the general public, which by design of physical facilities or by service or packaging procedures permits or encourages the purchase of prepared, ready-to-eat food intended to be consumed on or off the premises. Restaurant drive-throughs are permitted only on lots with a minimum of 1 acre and are prohibited on any other lot consisting of one acre. So this was to go into the C1 district and also amend the definition section. So as I said, that petition warrant article failed. There was another petition warrant article on the 2020 warrant, and again, it failed. Some of the issues raised are as follows. We need to consider the impact on existing businesses, traffic safety issues, aesthetic issues. There is no support for this type of establishment in the past or current master plan. The greater downtown is a pedestrian-friendly environment, and that's the way that people in the community have wanted to keep it. So currently, the zoning ordinance does allow for drive-through banks and other retail establishments, but not restaurants. Okay, so that's kind of the end of the history. Does any other planning board member want to mention anything that I may have forgotten? Everybody did. Okay. All right. Okay. So what we're here for is we want to hear your views. So if you could come on up to the microphone, one here, one there, and give us your name and address. Start out by saying if you're in favor of prohibiting drive-through, or if you would like to see some drive-through restaurants. So if you could indicate that at the beginning for the sake of our recording secretary, that would be very helpful. And then just tell us briefly, and hope you can keep it to 3 minutes, why you feel that way. So why don't you come on up and let's hear from you.
Hello.
Hi.
Brenda Jarrett, Longstack Lane, Wolfeboro, and I am against the proposal to have drive-through restaurants in the town of Wolfeboro. My husband Doug and I moved here permanently just over a year ago after selling our home in New Jersey. We bought our home here in 2016. Why did we buy here? This town is a small, beautiful New England town. We were actually surprised that there was a Dunkin' Donuts drive-through, and we learned a little bit about the history there, and we were told through folks that it wasn't going to happen again. There wasn't going to be another drive-through, and now here we are again after all of the history that Ms. Barnard just went through. We love this town, and we want to support all of the local businesses that we can. We would go to restaurants that are local every day if we could. We have to eat in sometimes, but we don't want to see more drive-throughs, more homogenizing of this little town and dumbing it down, so to speak. I don't want to go here. I don't want to come here. I don't want folks to come here and say, oh, well, I can find this chain or this drive-through or that drive-through. If we give them the opportunity to drive through and not enjoy this town and walk the town and go to the coffee shops and go to the restaurants, they won't. And the more we allow the homogenization of Wolfeboro, the less of a town it becomes. I hope that when many folks tonight offer their opinions, it will be the same thing. All of the other issues that you've already brought up, safety, traffic, et cetera, are also extremely important and would have to be considered, not to mention the architecture and design of whatever goes in to a particular location. Thank you for all of your hard work, and thank you to all of the folks who have come out tonight.
Okay, and could you please spell your last name? I'm
Sure.
sorry.
Jorett.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. All right. Yes. Thank you. Yeah, just try and speak into that microphone.
Hi, Bobby Budbit.
And could
My
you
opinion of whether
spell your
I'm
last name for us,
B
please?
as in boy, O-U, D as in David, M-A-N. And my opinion of whether I am for or against this drive-through does not matter. As you stated, we have voted on this issue 2 times in the last 4 years. On March 14th, 2017, voters went to the polls, and we resoundingly, 70%, said no to this issue. Then again, last year in 2020, on March 10th, another article, a petition article, came forward, even though the planning board the first time around said 5-0, and the second time the planning board there was only 1 person, and here we are again facing this, and I don't understand why the will of the people in this town is being overlooked 2 times in a row. We resoundingly, 70% the first time and 68% the second time, stated we did not want drive-throughs. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else want to?
Hi, I'm Linda Greeley from Port Woodland.
Okay,
I am
Greeley.
against
Can you just spell your last name, please?
Greely.
Thank you.
We are against the drive-through. Like all the other reasons stated previously, it's already been voted down, traffic, safety, and everything else. But also, the small businesses that we do have here can't find help as it is. You can't walk in a door without seeing a "we're hiring" sign. Now, if we add another chain restaurant, and then if you allow this one, you're going to have another one, who's going to work in them? We don't have anybody work, you know, like I said, every place is starving for help. So let's help the businesses that we have and keep Wolfeboro nice and quaint the way it is. Anyways, that's my opinion.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Hi.
Achor. That's Z as in zebra, A-C-H-O-R.
Speak into the microphone.
Yeah.
Z as in zebra, A-C-H-O-R. I live on 8 Highland Terrace here in Wolfeboro. Came up here, moved up here permanently 7 years ago. Coming up here since my 75 years.
Can you pull that microphone closer?
I want this town. Oh, I'm sorry. Maybe if I just talk.
No, you have to speak to us, please.
I will. I'm sorry, yeah, this is not good. I don't know what the problem is. But I'm vehemently opposed to a drive-through, another drive-through in the town of Wolfeboro. My primary reasons are, well, actually 3. I want to retain the beautiful, the uniqueness of this town. It's a beautiful town. We don't need those kind of places here. I can understand drive-throughs, banks. I don't know who's witness on Center Street with a drive-through for Dunkin' Donuts. It backs up onto Center Street. It's a really dangerous situation. I really support all our local businesses. People have said to me, I've talked to people about this, and they've said, well, where can you get an inexpensive meal? An inexpensive meal. I don't know any of you that might have gone to one of these drive-through franchises and seen what it really costs you when you go through there. You can certainly find, we have many, many, many fine establishments here in Wolfeboro. I want to support these small businesses. And just the thought of it, really, I get too emotional about it. Anyway, that's about all I have to say, and I support what Bobby Bodman said. We voted on this. I don't understand why it's still coming up.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Troy Lucas, and I live at 1 Maplewood Drive in Wolfeboro. Lucas is the spelling of the last name. My wife and I own Lucas Roasting Company in Back Bay. When we moved up from Virginia 5 years ago, we literally drove about 600 miles around the state of New Hampshire as we were trying to decide on a town to relocate our business in from Virginia. And we got to see a lot of New Hampshire in that time frame. We got to see a lot of how all the little towns are put together. We weren't looking for a big town, we were looking for a little town. And when we found Wolfeboro, one of the absolute deciding factors for us was the extreme lack of national chain recognition here. There's something charming about this town in the sense that it is an escape from all of the big box stores in America. I own a coffee roasting business. I own a business that, much like Dunkin' Donuts, could utilize a drive-through for our business, and we could conduct so much more business than we already do. But we've been here long enough to have voted on the warrant articles, and we voted no, that we didn't believe that there needed to be more drive-through restaurants in town. One of the things that is charming about Wolfeboro that you don't find elsewhere is the lack of billboard business signs that you find in other places. It's a place to come to walk into a business that is maybe the first time you've ever been there, and you're going to go check out what the small businesses are in the community. We love this little town, and with the traffic congestion that is a known issue in this town, with the streets that are we all live here. We know the one-way streets to get around all of the congestion as much as we can, but putting more congestion like we already see with a current drive-through into our community, we don't feel like that's necessarily the right thing to do. And we moved here away from a town that unfortunately did not heed what people were saying, and when the dollar stores moved in and the other box stores moved in, we lived in a tiny little town like Wolfeboro that suddenly became something that was just as recognizable as every other little box store town in America, and we wanted out of that. So that's why we moved here.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Francis Phillips, PHILLIPS. Live on Blackberry Lane. Lived in Wolfeboro over 30 years. I'm still a carpetbagger, but I've lived here over 30 years, and I'm dead set against these drive-through restaurants in a C1 district. I like the quaintness of Wolfeboro. I like the idea that local restaurants are struggling to survive. They have such a short window. They have 4 to 5 months to make money. Half of this town leaves come October 15th. So I think it would be a mistake to approve any drive-through restaurants in this town.
Thank you.
My name is Douglas Breskin. Last name is B as in boy, R-E-S-K-I-N. I live on Longstack Lane here in Wolfeboro. I'd like to speak in opposition to the drive-through restaurants. I've heard some discussion tonight about national chains. My understanding is that having a drive-through restaurant doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a national chain. Certainly, as Lucas just said, it could be a small independent operator that could have a drive-through restaurant. But I don't like the idea of a drive-through restaurant because, as other people have said, I like the small town feel. And I like the fact that if I want to go to a shop, I have to park my car, get out and walk. And walking allows me to meet my neighbors and my friends in the town and increase that small town interaction, which you wouldn't have if you're isolated in your car going through a drive-through and limiting your interaction with your friends and neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you.
Evening. My name is Felicity Freund. That's F-R-E-U-N-D. I live at 36 Point Breeze Road, and I also have a home on Lake Wentworth, one of the islands. My concern is that these kinds of places are elsewhere. Let people drive to Concord. Let them go down to Alton. But why space change the face of this beautiful town? And I'm really concerned is who's going to profit from this? Is the money going to stay here in Wolfeboro? And if it isn't, we don't need it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
My name is Mal Blodgett. lived down on Pleasant Valley Road for 42 years. I have to count. I have to do the math. It's been a while. Anyways, Wolfeboro has a beautiful soul, I'd like to call it, and which is frankly missing from many small towns that you might see across America. We just got back from a trip across Pennsylvania, saw many small towns. Not a whole lot stood out as a similar town, unique and beautiful like Wolfeboro. We did come across one town that was unusually nice, not unlike Wolfeboro. It was called Jim Thorpe. If you get a chance and you're down in Pennsylvania, I encourage you to visit. But it's obviously had an historic, probably a historic commission. I don't know a whole lot about the town, but it was quite obvious that there was people thought long and hard before they made significant changes that would affect the future of that town. And it showed in stark contrast to many other small towns. So obviously I'm not in favor of drive-through restaurants. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Maggie Steer, S-T-I-E-R, Center Street. People have been so eloquent already tonight in the arguments against, and I will join them and second what has been said already. But I also want to point out one thing that Chairman Barnard said, that it is not in the master plan to have drive-throughs. And I was here last night at the Board of Selectmen's meetings. I've been at planning board meetings. I chair the Heritage Commission. I know we've worked on adopting architectural standards for our site plan review. There are so many people who volunteer their time to manage change in this town, and they do it carefully and thoughtfully. We have been absolutely inundated this year with guests, as the Chamber of Commerce calls them, and with many newcomers who have helped our town to grow. And almost to a person, they all say they like the way the town is. So let's listen to the folks who are working really hard to accommodate everyone, keep people happy. I think, again, there is at least 2/3 of the population of this town that would vote against drive-throughs should we vote again tonight. And I would urge everyone to put this matter to rest and pay attention to how we can preserve the wonderful historic character and charm of our town. Thank you.
Thank you.
Suzanne Ryan, Stoneham Road. I'm a youngster here in town. I've only been here 20 years, so. I am opposed to corporate chain, and I think that the general perception is we're thinking of corporate chains as far as drive-through. I would never want to see one of those. So my question would be to the planner or planning board, since we allow takeout, we can call in an order and drive up and take it out. I don't think that's prohibited.
That's correct.
Okay. Would there be a way that the small restaurants, the mom and pop restaurants, can do something along that line and expand that portion of that ordinance to allow them and keep out the chains? I got a feeling it's discriminatory and you can't do that. I see you smiling, Tavis. Because if we can't keep out the chains, then we best leave it just as it is. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is Nancy Hertzberg. I live on Clark Road. And my comments are directed toward corporate chains as well. One thing that has not been mentioned is anyone who's been on the town pickup cleanup day knows what we find. It's about 90% Dunkin' Donuts. So when we invite in some of these chains, we invite in garbage with it as well, which affects the aesthetics of our town, how it looks and feels. I do a lot of travel for work, and sometimes when I'm traveling, I'm going down a road and I absolutely cannot remember where I am. And that is because of something called the geography of nowhere. When you're going down and you see Applebee's and McDonald's and Burger King, and you literally cannot tell if you're in New Hampshire, San Diego, or Indiana. And that's what having many of these corporate chains does to a community. We've heard tonight, we see it online all the time. People come to our town and are just they just fall in love with it. And why do people visit and move here? It's because of what it looks like and how, quote, we've heard a lot tonight about quaint. I am very sensitive to being elitist, and I think the issue of low-cost food is an important one, but we have, as one who raised her child here, there are many, many takeout options, and we survived without McDonald's and without Taco Bell and all those things here in town. We have, for the students at Brewster, I know there's Three Sisters, there's Huck's Hoagies, there's countless pizza places here. Even the grocery stores serve takeout soups, salads, and hot food. We really don't need to allow chains in town, and they have a very detrimental effect. I love Wolfeboro and don't want to see it become the geography of nowhere, so I really encourage us not to allow the drive-through. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
My name is Sabet, S-A-B-E-T, Strowman, S-T-R-O-M-A-N. We're on, my husband Bob Gorel and I are on Governor Shore Road, and we were summer residents here for 20-something years before we became full-time residents 2 years ago. And our decision to become full-time residents was based on how much we love Wolfeboro as it is now. So much of what people have said, the charm, the fact that you walk down the street, you meet people that way, chatting. So I'm not going to reiterate what everyone else has said, but I will mention one other thing, because I think it comes down to in a certain way to dollars and cents. And maybe somebody is telling you that there's a lot of revenue that's going to be generated for the town based on a drive-through. I would ask you to consider the amount of revenue in property taxes and in other forms. For example, we now give to the library. We give to other nonprofits here in town. What you'll lose when you lose people like us who make the decision to move here. A couple of examples. I have a good friend, I shouldn't mention their names, but I have a really good friend that because of COVID spent the year here. And I can imagine that their property taxes are way over, I mean, they're probably astronomical. And I think they have become, because of that, because of spending the year here, falling in love with it even more, they have become full-time residents. I have another good friend who moved from New York. Now, they do live in Brookfield, but they do all of their shopping, all of their dining out, everything belonged to the golf clubs here in Wolfeboro. I was at the farmer's market today, and I love our farmer's market. And I was chatting with the woman behind me who's from Chicago. She owns a place, she and her family have owned a camp forever in Alton. Well, they're building a house now, right within the, I don't know exactly where, but it's in Wolfeboro. And they're going to be moving here permanently in a year. And we both talked about what drew us here. And what drew us here is everything that makes Wolfeboro special, the charm, the small towns, the fact that there are no drive-throughs, fast food. I mean, if anything, I would beg the planning board to get stricter rather than more lenient with things like drive-throughs. I would love for us to become more like a town, a planned community, in some of the ones that are around, not so much planned, but very restrictive communities. I think that's where our tourism dollars come from, is when we focus on what makes us special. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is Karen Place. I live in Center Street. And I kind of want to reiterate that as far as what makes Wolfeboro special. I grew up in Alton, and if you drive through Alton Bay, it is not what it used to be when I was a kid, when you could go to the roller skating rink, you could go to the movie theater, you could do all of those things. We moved to Wolfeboro to raise our family here, and what we love is driving to town and walking downtown and feeling like you're on vacation in the place that you live. So I just wanted to add that to this discussion.
Thank you.
So my name is Jonathan Doherty. That's D-O-H-E-R-T-Y. And we're at 114 Cowper Road in North Wolfeboro. All of the speakers speak my mind. So I'll speak from a different perspective. Well, I'm a planner by profession. I think as many of us, I speak from the heart. This year, my family will have owned land in North Wolfeboro for 90 years. I'm the third generation. My grandparents came here in their early 30s because of the character of this place. And I've been here in Wolfeboro since the late 1950s. And what's remarkable to me is that every time I come into Wolfeboro, it largely feels the same in terms of character and experience as it has throughout my entire life. And I think that's what all of us value about this place. It's that experience of going into local businesses, the places some of which are still here and have been here throughout my entire life, and the places that that have come and gone that we think of. Whether it's Toby's Pharmacy, where you could get root beer and frosted mugs, or Camelot Bookshop, or others. That's what's special about this place, and not once in my life have I ever missed the experience of going through a drive-through restaurant of any kind. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to add anything at this point?
Quite that tall. My name is Diane Bolduc, B as in boy, O-L-D-U-C. I live on Kings Pine Road. My kids grew up in a city. My grandchildren are military family, and they've grown up in a lot of places, or they're still growing up in a lot of places. And everywhere we've ever been with them, I've heard from them, can we go to McDonald's? When they come to Wolfeboro, they want to go to Bly's. They want to go to the Bubble. They want to go to Black's. They have never once said, where's McDonald's? Why can't we go there? I want to reiterate what people have said. This should be a closed issue. The people of this town have spoken and spoken again, and they're speaking tonight. And it would give so much peace of mind to those many, many people to know that this was a closed issue and we didn't have to worry about it coming up again and again. And that my grandchildren and other people's could have a place that's their home that feels special. Thank you.
Anyone else want to make a comment?
My name is Paul Zimmerman. I manage some properties on the other side of town. I'd like to thank you for hosting this meeting this evening. I think it's a wonderful opportunity for the people in the community to express their concerns. It's my opinion that the majority of the people in this room are probably not in favor of a drive-through restaurant, and I respect that. However, I think there's some points that you could think about. If you're concerned about the aesthetics and the character and the quality of the community, which we all cherish, you might take a look at Meredith Savings Bank, a drive-through facility that totally complements the architectural character of the community, and you don't really know there's a drive-up behind the facility. It's certainly a lot more attractive than the new hospital, the new library, or the high school. These are architectural disasters compared to the Meredith Savings Bank, which complements the character of the community. Suppose somebody like Huck's Hoagies wanted to expand and have a drive-through. Would that be acceptable? I'm aware of the fact that 2 warrant articles have been posted on the ballot, but they were denied, not completely, but they were denied primarily because the planning board did not support the warrant article. I think in all fairness, it would be reasonable to ask the planning board to put a warrant article on the ballot, suggesting the town vote whether they approve or don't approve a drive-through, and support the warrant article and see what happens then. One of the problems we have in the community is that it has a very large service industry made out of carpenters and plumbers and electricians and landscapers. Thousands of these people. There's no place for these vendors to have lunch. They have trucks and trailers, and there's no physical place for them to drive in and get some food to eat. A drive-through could resolve that problem, and a drive-through could be put in Wolfeboro so it would complement the community architecturally. There have been studies made by large drive-through companies that when they are in a small community like Wolfeboro, it actually improves and enhances the volume in other restaurants. It's not a deterrent. It doesn't take away from other restaurants. They actually increase other restaurants. That's the end of my story. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the Planning Board. My name is Bob Sterndale, Sterndale. I live in Wolfeboro on Forest Road. I'm a newcomer here. I've been here for 3 years. We lived in another small town in New Hampshire for about 45 years, and in retirement decided to move here because much as we'd been in a very nice town for 45 years, Wolfeboro's nicer. Adding drive-through restaurants will not make it even nicer. I think it's an aesthetic mistake to add more drive-through restaurants to the town. We have a prime example of the adverse traffic impact of a drive-through restaurant in Dunkin' Donuts here in town. I think to compare a restaurant drive-through with a bank drive-through is disingenuous. They're very different patterns of use. So I think both from a traffic and aesthetic point of view, this would be a mistake. Madam Chair, you did a nice job of explaining the history of this, but I'm not informed about how this topic comes up again. I wonder if you could, I suspect other people would like to hear about that as well. I wonder if you could explain that for us. Thank you for your service.
Okay. Really, the reason that it has come up a couple times is because of the petition warrant article. Any citizen of Wolfeboro can prepare and submit to the planning board a petition article about zoning regulations. That's then reviewed by the planning board. Planning board said they're in favor or not in favor, and then it goes on the town ballot, and so that's actually how it happened in the past with the 2 petition warrant articles. Okay, anyone else want to comment?
Ask you a question regarding that. Is there any time limit? Can this happen year after year after year? Or does somebody need to be slapped in the face, say, you know, we voted on this 2, 3, 4 times. The planning board is not going to move on it and just let it lie.
Right, I'll let our planning director comment on that, but as far as I know, there is no time limit. Go ahead, Tavis.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. No, there is no time limit. In fact, any given town meeting cycle, there's a certain time frame in which a petition warrant article has to be supported by, I believe, 25 registered voters of the town. So it has to be very specific in the language, as the first 2 petitions that have been talked about were. It then is accompanied by 25 registered voters. If the town clerk can then certify it, it comes to the planning board. The planning board can review that, have a public hearing on that, and at that time decide whether it's going to be supported or not. So going into all that detail, even should the planning board decide following tonight or subsequent discussions on this issue, decide not to move forward with modifying the language to allow drive-through restaurants, a citizen petition may come forward again this year and next year ad infinitum, if you will. I believe, and I'm going to beg a little time from the chair, one of the reasons the planning board set this practice up this go-around or this year was based on an argument that Mr. Zimmerman presented to the planning board, said the reason it failed at town warrant level under the petition was because the planning board didn't support it. So when the planning board heard that, they also said, well, one of the reasons we decided, and I don't want to speak for them, they can all tell me I'm wrong because I wasn't here. I'm a flatlander as it is. So what they said was, it came to us as a petition. We didn't survey the public. We didn't ask the public. We didn't have a public forum. We didn't gain any real understanding of public sentiment. So we didn't feel we had the ability to support a petition warrant article that came essentially out of the blue from the planning board's perspective. So there's been a lot of angst. Lord knows my email hasn't stopped when this came back up. How dare you keep asking this question? We voted this down. The planning board is trying to honor that sentiment, if you will, by saying, let's ask the public. Let's do a survey. Let's have a public forum. Maybe the vote was wrong. Sure, it was 70% against, 68% against on the last 2 petition warrant articles. But the planning board, in this case, is looking to do its due diligence to decide, should the planning board take this up as a topic in and of itself to contemplate such language that they would then be comfortable based on public support, et cetera, putting to town warrant, whether that be town meeting 22 or a later year. So it's not that you're not being heard. It's just the planning board is being told it's not doing its job by not supporting the petition, and yet they're also being told they're not doing their job by doing it, in my professional opinion. So tonight is the time, along with the survey and other things, to say, here is our voice, let us be heard, and the planning board will then decide probably at a later meeting whether it is going to make recommendations going forward on drive-through restaurants. I hope that helps.
Okay, go ahead, Mike.
Just to reiterate what, Michael Hodder, just to reiterate what our chairman said. In 1998, the planning board voted and the town voted to add to the definition of carryout restaurant language that prohibits drive-through restaurants in town. There were 2 subsequent petition warrant articles, 2017 and 2020, both of which went down at a resounding 2-to-1 defeat to allow drive-through restaurants in town. Planning board heard comments that the only reason those 2 petition warrant articles failed to get the support of the town was because the planning board failed to recommend them to the town. Now, the planning board couldn't very well recommend them because the planning board, by doing so, would be recommending against its own zoning regulation, which it had written and the town's members had passed back in 1998. So we couldn't very well recommend against. But the planning board took those comments to heart and decided to hold a public forum on the issue where we are neither recommending nor declining to recommend, but simply soliciting public input. What does the town want to do about drive-through restaurants? The results of this evening's conversations and other information come to the planning board. We will deliberate based upon what the town tells us. We will act accordingly. In that case, there can be no criticism that our recommendation against somehow queered the pitch for drive-through restaurants coming into town. Because we're not making a recommendation, we're asking you to tell us what you think. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Okay, would you folks mind, would you please sort of indicate by a show of hands people who are against drive-through restaurants in town? Okay, all right. Okay, thank you. And people who are in favor of adding drive-through restaurants in town? All right, thank you, Paul. Okay, and also, we also, in promoting this, had a Survey Monkey results that we put out and asked people to respond to, and the response were about 80% in favor of not permitting drive-through restaurants, and I think it was 20, is that right, Suzanne? Was 20 in favor of having drive-throughs. So anyway, the next step, and if anyone listening at home or any of the rest of you have other information you want to pass on to us, please just put it in an email or a letter, send it to the planning office, and then that will be forwarded to us. At a future work session, the planning board will then look at all of this information. We also have quite a number of comments that came through with the Survey Monkey. So we've got quite a few pieces of information here that we have to go through. But we will be talking about this at a work session and deciding how we will proceed. So again, thank you very much for coming out. We appreciate hearing from you and for you taking your time away from whatever else is very busy. Yes, go ahead, Ann.
Ann Hardenberg, Kingswood
pull
Road.
it down.
Oh, that's okay.
Oh, okay.
How will we know that this is sort of over with for this year?
Okay, well, our agendas are all, if you go to the planning board and look at our agendas, you'll see when the items that we'll be discussing in the future. Okay, but we should get to it in August or September.
I have to know whether to bring all the grandchildren.
Okay.
Bring them anyway.
I can do it. 4 generations of Hardenbergs and lots of grandchildren that love the town the way it is, with the ice cream places, the bakery places, the restaurants, and I'm going home tonight to have some good Chinese, so thank you.
Okay, thank you. And thank you all again for coming. I appreciate it. Yes, this is, I don't know, I think we're going to get it in our next.